India is now the world's biggest country by population, probably. Hi there, everyone. I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help English learners upgrade their skills in their new language. We do that with lessons on current events and trending topics. And each lesson also helps you express new ideas in English, too. This is lesson number 568. Plain English is produced by JR, and JR has uploaded the full lesson to plainenglish.com/568. Coming up today, for more than 2 centuries, China has been the world's most populous country until, that is, last month. Now, India has surpassed its rival China to become the country with the most people in the world, according to projections. On today's lesson, you'll learn more about the world's most populous country. In the second half of the lesson, I'll show you how to use the English expression headed in, and we have a quote of the week. Let's get started. The economic story of the past half century has been China's rise as the world's workshop. When it first opened up economically, it was seen as an almost unlimited source of cheap manufacturing labor. But as the years passed, China developed a much more advanced manufacturing economy with tightly knit supply chains, local expertise, and a vast consumer market all its own. What will be the economic story of the next half century? For answers, we can look to population. According to UN forecasts, India has surpassed China as the world's most populous country. This month, according to projections, India and China will have approximately 1.4 billion people each, but India slightly more. And this isn't a blip. In terms of population, the two countries are headed in opposite directions. To see why, consider one big driver of population growth: fertility. China's fertility rate is 1.18. That means the average woman will have 1.18 children in her lifetime, far less than the replacement rate, which is just over 2. Many young Chinese face a 4-2-1 problem. One child supports 2 parents and 4 grandparents. By contrast, India's fertility rate is about 2.0. That's also less than replacement, but that's not the whole story. India's population is much younger. The average Indian is 27 years old. The average Chinese person is more than a decade older. That means many, many more people are entering childbearing age in India than in China. And it also means that many, many more people are entering the workforce. This is a big change. India's population is expected to peak in 2064 at 1.7 billion people. If the forecasts are correct, India will have 50% more residents than China in that year. Let me put this another way. Barring the unthinkable, India will be the most populous country for the rest of your life and probably your children's and grandchildren's lives too. So here are some things to know about the world's new most populous country. India is incredibly diverse. There are 22 officially recognized languages. The most commonly spoken is Hindi, which is the native language of only about 4 in 10 Indians. English is commonly spoken in the large cities, in government, and in big business, but only about 12% of the population speaks English. For a large country, the population is also very rural. Only about 35% of its residents live in cities. Compare that to over 60% in China, 82% in the United States, and 87% in Brazil. About 80% of the population identify as Hindus, the dominant religious group. About 15% are Muslim, 2% Christian. About 30% of Indians are vegetarians, many for religious or ethical reasons. Hinduism teaches respect for all living beings, so many Hindus are vegetarian for spiritual reasons. We think of India as a hot country, and it is, but it also has the cooler Himalayan mountains in the north. There are jungles, deserts, beaches, and tropics. India is home to the largest population of people and also to the largest population of Bengal tigers in the world. Economically, many Americans know India for its prowess in IT services, information technology. Indian offices have expanded to provide a wide range of business services. For centuries, it has been an exporter of textiles, including silk and cotton. Indian scarves, suits, and carpets are famous. It has a thriving film industry. That's called Bollywood. India produces more films per year than any other country. The capital is Delhi in the north. The biggest city is Mumbai in the south. India shares a border with 6 countries: China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Bhutan, and Nepal. India's borders are a sore subject. Its border with China is disputed, with each side claiming control over the same area. And it's a similar story with Pakistan. The Kashmir region is claimed by both countries. In geopolitics, India often goes its own way. It did not join sanctions against Russia for the war in Ukraine, and India continues to buy Russian oil while at the same time maintaining close ties to the United States and Europe. It tries to straddle both sides of the US-China rivalry. India also has a famously large diaspora, the population of people of Indian descent living in other countries. Estimates and definitions vary, but it could be about 25 million people who have brought Indian culture, languages, food, and traditions to other countries. So, if China and India are roughly equal right now in May 2023, what other countries are the most populous after those two? This is incredible. Number 3 is the United States with about 300 million. So 1 and 2 are 1.4 billion. Number 3 is only 300 million. Next after that are Indonesia and Pakistan, both fast-growing countries with about 250 million people each. In terms of population then, there are the two giants and then a huge gap before the next biggest country. It could be another 2 centuries or longer before the world sees a different country atop the population tables. The expression I picked for you today is headed in. You might remember we talked about a similar one in lesson 45 that was called head for. But today we're talking about a strange little expression that we use when talking about movement. Here's how we form it. We say a person or a thing is headed in a direction. And we almost always use the word direction in the sentence. So here's a really common phrase in English. I think we're headed in the wrong direction. What that means is we are moving in the wrong direction. Now, this can mean two things. First, you could be walking down a street or driving down a street and trying to find something. And you might look around and think, we are moving, we are walking, we are driving in the wrong direction. But we are headed in the wrong direction might also mean we are not progressing well. So you might be making a lot of progress on a project, but if that progress is not leading to your goals, then you're in trouble. So imagine you're at work and you need to hire a company to improve your marketing. And all the companies that come in, they propose ideas that you're not comfortable with. You might say to your colleagues, I think we are headed in the wrong direction on this project. Yes, you're progressing. You contacted a lot of companies. They came in to pitch their ideas. You asked them questions. You're moving. You're progressing. But if it's not toward your goals, you can say, we're headed in the wrong direction on this project. Now, if you're a manager, your team might come to you with questions or for advice. They might have started a project and they might want to know if they're doing it right. So you might review their work and determine that they're doing a good job. In that case, you can say, I think you're headed in the right direction. Is the country headed in the right direction or the wrong direction? This is a popular question for opinion polls, and a useless one, I might add. In the US, this was first asked in the early 1970s. And with few exceptions, Americans always say the country is headed in the wrong direction. But I bet few of us want to go back to how things were in the 1970s. Today I said that India's and China's populations are headed in opposite directions. That means that China's population will be going down, while India's population will be going up. They are moving in opposite directions, or they are headed in opposite directions. But let's go back to the more physical world. You can also say headed in a person's direction if something is moving toward that person. If you look at a weather map, you might see a storm moving toward you. In the US, we have a broadly west to east weather pattern. And in Chicago, we would see a winter storm out over Iowa, and it would move east toward Chicago. And when that happened, we would say a big storm is headed in our direction. If you're meeting a friend and you're both moving around, you can say, stay where you are. I'm headed in your direction. That means you don't move because I'm moving toward you. I'm going toward where you are. I'm headed in your direction. Here's a funny quote about India. It's by an author, Arundhati Roy, who wrote a famous book called The God of Small Things. She said, India lives in several centuries at the same time. And listen, from my visits, I can confirm that sentiment. India lives in several centuries at the same time. Well, one of my favorite authors is an American author of Indian heritage. Her name is Shumpa Lahiri. She was born in London, lived most of her life in the US, and her parents are from India. And if you're looking for a good book, you can try The Namesake. That was also made into a movie. Shumpa Lahiri often writes about the struggle between Indian tradition and modernity, about immigration, about what it means to be in the second generation in America. Her books are really, really good. So if you're a fan of literature, I highly, highly recommend The Namesake or really anything by Jhumpa Larry. Well, that's all for today's Plain English lesson number 568. Coming up on Thursday, we'll do another travel episode. This time, we'll be talking about New Orleans, Louisiana. I think you'll like it. That's Thursday on Plain English. See you then.